One of my favorite vacations growing up as a child was when we took a trip. This is going to sound really nerdy. When we took a trip up to Philadelphia. There's a lot of history, obviously, in Philadelphia. One of my favorite portions of that vacation was we went, I guess it's north maybe. Don't quote me on geography here. But we went up to Hershey, Pennsylvania, which was great. You get little, I don't know if anyone's ever been to the Hershey chocolate factory. I don't know if they still do this, but every time you take a turn, they give you like a little piece of chocolate. Oh, it's great. I see some good head nod. I'm surprised I'm not getting some amens. It's wonderful. They give you so much chocolate. But we also went to Gettysburg. I love history. I love all kinds of history that involves war, too. Love watching, World War II in color and things of that nature. But when you think about it, armor has changed so much. And something that is a common story that we teach our kids that I don't know if we teach enough to adults is the armor of God. It's something that I don't know if we necessarily think enough about. Sometimes we can make lessons, say the flood, the building of the ark, some of these, David and Goliath, things of these other stories that we teach the youth. And sometimes I think we can just look at them as a very, very simple story, and then we kind of forget the main context or the main reason behind the teaching. And so this evening, we're going to find ourselves in Ephesians 6 talking about the whole armor of God. And if you do have a pen or a pencil, I highly encourage you to use it this afternoon. I always say circle, highlight, and underline. Today, I'm actually going to ask you to underline and or circle or make a square. I make squares when I start counting things. But it starts in Ephesians 6, starting in verse number 10 of Ephesians 6. And it starts off by saying, finally, be strong in the Lord. And I love that phrase because it's one of those phrases you really can circle, highlight, underline. Before this, Paul has been talking about how we should walk in love, how we should love one another, how wives should love their husbands and husbands should love their wives. He's talked about how children should obey their parents and how parents should act towards children. And then it goes in at the starting in verse 5 of chapter 6 in Ephesians about how bondservants and masters should act towards one another and how the master up above is the master that really matters. And the one that shows no partiality is what Paul gives us in verse number 9 of chapter 6. And then he starts off in verse 10 and he says, finally, be strong in the Lord. Notice the emphasis on the final three words there. We don't find our strength in ourselves. We don't find our strength in anything that we can find in the world. We find our strength in the Lord. But not only in that, it says be strong in the Lord and in the strength of what? Of His might. It's not our own might. It's not someone else's might. It's not our friend group. It's not what occupation we have or anything of that nature. We find our strength in the Lord and in His might. Let that be a reminder to us. This is something that we're going to talk about as we go through when we talk about putting on the whole armor of God. Let us remember, so often, especially adults, I actually think kids maybe get this better than adults do. Kids understand that where their strength comes from. They look to their parents for their strength. They look to mom or for dad for protection or for food or for whatever it may be. Adults, sometimes we can fall straight into the pattern of just trying to resort to our own strength, trying to resort to our own power, to our own measure, to the things that we have by ourselves, trying to provide for ourselves instead of remembering that the power and the strength comes from above. And in verse 11, the fourth word is, well, depending on what version you have, is going to be the word that we're going to first underline. But it says, put on the whole armor of God. In these short 9 or 20 or 10 verses, you're going to see the word whole and the word all repeated time and time and time again. This is something that Brian mentioned, I believe, 2 Wednesdays ago. Dale mentioned it this morning. Put on the whole armor of God. This is another thing that I think we can struggle with today. Sometimes we may love the helmet. We may think the helmet, it looks really cool. It's super shiny. But we don't like the breastplate of righteousness. It's too heavy. Maybe we don't like the shoes because the shoes are peace. Maybe we don't like picking up the sword all the time because the sword can sometimes be divisive because it shares the truth. After all, people left Jesus because He was sharing the truth, and Jesus did not chase after them. Jesus stuck with the truth because He cared about their soul and where their soul was going to spend eternity. Let us put on the whole armor of God. It does not do us any good to put on just 3 or 4 or whatever it may be of the armor. We must be all in. If we are not all in, we are all out. It says, put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. The ESV says may be able to stand. I believe the New King James and the NASB say, so you will be able to stand. It's not even a may, it's that you will be able to stand. And when you think about the importance of that, sometimes Peter found this out firsthand. He's the second person to walk on water, and boy, is he confident. And he walks out and he sinks. Because why? He started looking at everything else around him. He lost sight of the prize that was right there before him. The faith shrunk. We can stand. That's what's so important. No matter how hard the world can kick you, no matter how hard the world can knock you down, when you have on the whole armor, you can stand. It doesn't matter what's going on. Now, right now, we're in a political season, and people are all worried about all these political things. If we have on the whole armor of God, if we are fully invested of Him, it doesn't matter, because we know where our heavenly home is. It's not about a political party. It's about getting more and more and more people to see and believe and follow after Christ. That's the main goal in our life, is to be planting seeds to allow for Christ to allow for the increase. So that you may be able to stand against the schemes. The word behind the word schemes is also method. Dale spoke a little bit about this morning as well. Boy, are his schemes good. I don't think we give him enough credit. When you look at the temptation of Jesus that Dale mentioned this morning, He's going to tempt us. He's going to use the same method, the same scheme, time and time and time again. It doesn't matter if it was 2,000 years ago with Jesus, or it's present time today, or 2,000 years, or however long life may go on. It doesn't matter. The same scheme, the same method, the same idea is going to be used time and time and time again. He may use different pieces inside of that, but the same idea is going to be there. Never forget that the devil is still working today. Never forget that. So often I think we can forget the fact that he's still working. And in fact, I think he's working overtime. It says in verse 12, this one you can circle, highlight the whole thing. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. What do we not wrestle against? Flesh and blood. What do we get caught up in so much today? Fighting with one another. One of the worst things that we can do is sit there and verbally attack one another, or let alone kill somebody. Because then, not only if they're not saved have you killed them physically, you've now sent their soul to a worse state. Let us remember how Ananias acted. Ananias very easily could have just, he already was questioning the fact that Saul was coming into town because he knew what Saul was doing. We so easily can act the exact same way as Ananias, but even take it a step further and ridicule and go after that person verbally or physically. Yet Ananias still followed and did exactly what God wanted. And what did Saul end up being? Paul, who ended up what? Reaching and saving so many souls. Let us remember that that person is caught up in the schemes of the evil one. Let us remember that that person still has an eternal soul. That person still has a place in heaven, because hell was not made for them, just like it's not made for us. Let us not go after them physically. Let us go after them with something spiritual that can truly change their life. It says in verse 13, therefore take up the whole armor of God. You can circle, underline, square, whatever you want. The whole armor of God. The second time it's mentioned, it's repeated. It's the whole armor. It does you no good, again, just to do a portion of it, but instead the whole thing. If you're not fully committed to God, you're not really committed at all. Put on or take up the whole armor of God, that you what? That you may be able to withstand in the evil day, or that you may be able to resist, some of your translations may say. Resist. Stand. Not only can you stand, you can stand firm. You can stand knowing that you are standing on the rock of salvation. Standing on something that is so much greater than anything else in this world. Dale mentioned this morning, we've mentioned it numerous times in our Life of Christ class on Wednesday night, we are not going to be tempted beyond what we can handle. Which is why when we put on the full armor of God, we can stand. We don't have to stay down just because the world has kicked us down. We can stand, and we can stand with Christ. So as we put on the whole armor of God, that we can stand, we can resist in the evil day. Is the day evil? Boy, is the day evil. The day was evil here in this time. The day is evil today. During this time, they were dealing with a whole lot of Greek gods. People were upset in Ephesus because here comes this message from Paul, and what is one of their main ways to make money? Oh, it's making idols. Well, what happens when you become a Christian? I don't need my idols anymore. What happens to the people who make idols? I have no business anymore. We're losing money. They were facing all kinds of evil things, just as we are facing evil things today. And it says, stand in the evil day, and having done all to stand firm. There's your third time it uses something very firm. All. It's the first time it's mentioned. Having done all to stand firm. If you've ever seen some people, they'll quit at the first drop of adversity. They'll quit at the first persecution. Something happens that, well, that's too tough for me, I'm out. Having done all to stand firm. Are we doing all to stand firm today? Or are we too quick to just change? Are we too quick to lessen the truth so that people do not persecute us? Are we doing everything to stand firm? Sometimes we can think that, well, we've emptied the tank. That's all I can put forward to it. You still have more left. We still have more left. Christ still had more left. He prayed in the garden, can this cup pass from me? Yet he still went with it because it was the Father's will. Having done all to stand firm. Verse 14. Stand. Stand. That's something that we all need to take with us. Stand up. Let the voice be heard. Here at the end of this, Paul is going to actually pray so that he can speak more boldly. Paul. Boy, I wish I could speak as boldly as Paul does sometimes. Boy, Jesus spoke boldly. He would go straight into the Pharisee's house and he would tell the truth to a T. Stand, therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth. Boy, belts are a funny thing. Real funny thing. If we don't eat very much, you might have to tighten that belt a little bit. Lose a little bit of weight. You go on a diet or something like that, you might have to tighten it a little bit. Buy some new clothes. If you like to eat too much, you might have to loosen that belt a little bit. Sometimes we can do that with the Word of God without really thinking about it too much. We might tighten that belt a little bit because we want to cut out certain things that maybe don't fit what our opinion is. They make us feel uncomfortable. They're hard for us to manage. Sometimes maybe we're adding things in that don't need to be added in. We're adding in untruths. The Jews were doing this a lot during Jesus' time. They were adding in all kinds of things, tradition of the elders, as we talked about in the Life of Christ class on Wednesday. They were expanding the belt. Let us put on the belt of truth, a belt that is of God's truth. It's not of our truth. It's not of your favorite preacher's truth. It's not over your favorite athlete's truth. It is over God's truth. Let us not forget that. Having fastened on the belt of truth and having put on the breastplate of righteousness. When you think about the breastplate, you think about a chest covering. It's protecting all of your essential organs. You have your lungs in your chest. What air are you breathing in? Are you breathing in air that is clean and free of pollution? Or are you just soaking up the polluted air? You just taking in everything the world can offer. What about your heart? What can flow out of your heart because what are you digesting? You know what else is in your chest area that a breastplate could cover? Your whole digestive system. What are you digesting? What are you allowing your ears to listen to? What are you taking into your heart? Because what's flowing from your heart is what you're taking in. Protect your heart. Protect your lungs. Protect the air that God has put into your lungs. Putting on the breastplate of righteousness. And as shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. Notice two things there. Having put on the readiness given by the what? Gospel of peace. We should be ready all the time. House shoes are extremely comfortable. Boy, are they nice. Crocs can be comfortable. Put them in sport mode. You put the little flat back, that's sport mode for those that don't know about Crocs. If you don't know what Crocs are, I can show you sport mode afterwards. We need to have on shoes that are ready to hike, ready to move. You're not going to go, I hope you don't go on a hike up in the Great Smoky Mountains with your house slippers on. We can't be walking through life with whatever is most comfortable. We have to be walking through life with the shoes that Christ has designed, with the gospel of peace, with readiness, ready to walk wherever it may be. Verse 16, here's your next word you're going to highlight. In all. circumstances. All circumstances. Not some of them, not part of them, not just a quarter of them, not the ones that you think of. In all circumstances, take up what? Take up the shield of faith. We talked about this on Wednesday night, but the apostles were unable. The transfiguration is happening, and Jesus and 3 apostles come back down, and there's 9 left, and they're unable to heal this boy that is demon-possessed. And the child's father he says, well, they can't heal him. They can't remove the demon. Why were they unable? It's a lack of faith. There was a lack of faith. In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish what? Or highlight it, circle it, whatever you got. All the flaming darts of the evil one. In every single circumstance, you take it up. You see, so often we'll only take it up when things seem really bad. I mentioned this on Wednesday night. Jelly Roll, funny enough, I mentioned this again. He has that song, I only talk to God when I need a favor. Shameful if we'd fall into that trap. Shameful. We should be talking to God all the time. In all circumstances, we should be taking up that shield. Never should we let our shield down. It should be with us until the very, very end. If you go back and you look at old Roman and old war things, one of the things that they did is you had to be carried back on your shield. That's the only way you were coming back. Carried back on your shield. We should take our shield to the very end. And after that, we have such a great reward ahead. But it is in all circumstances, and that shield can what? Extinguish all the flaming darts. Not some of them, not part of them. All of them. Sometimes we can fall into the trap of thinking, I don't know. I'm going to have to help here too. God's got it. I always mention this, but Abraham famously said, God will provide. Boy, will he ever. We don't have to understand how. We don't have to understand when. We don't have to understand any of those things. We just have to rest assured that God will provide. And our shield of faith will extinguish all of the flaming darts of the evil one. Let us also remember that he's shooting flaming darts at us all of the time, looking to divide us, looking to get us to question ourselves, looking at us to get us to question our faith. Verse 17, and take the helmet of salvation. If you go back and you look at the old football helmets, they used to wear leather. Boy, you put leather helmets on the folks that play football today, and we'd really have a scene. They've advanced these helmets so much now, they're so protected, you don't have as many concussions and all these other things. But now what do we have an issue with? Targeting, right? People use the helmet the wrong way. They have a safer helmet, but yet now they still have similar concussions because they're using the helmet the wrong way. Let us put on the helmet of salvation, true salvation. Let us protect what is coming into our head. In this world today, we are in sensory overload all of the time. You turn on the TV, sensory overload. Turn on the radio, sensory overload. Scroll on any social media, sensory overload. All the time. Let us be careful what we are allowing into our head, because we need to make sure that we remain unstained from the world. So, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. Not only are we going to take the helmet of salvation, we are going to take the sword of the Spirit that is rightfully divided, is how it needs to be. Taking it with us where? Some places, everywhere. I mentioned this 2 Wednesday nights ago. People always make the statement, they always complain that people have taken prayer and the Bible out of school. Only if we allow it. It's nonsense. Have they? They can say they have. If there is a Christian in the school building, if there is a Christian anywhere, they cannot take prayer and or the Bible out of that location. Because as a Christian, you should have it written on the tablet of your heart, and you can pray wherever you walk. The only way they're truly taking it out, I guess, is if they kill all of us. And then we have a much better reward waiting us ahead. But they can't take it away unless we allow it. That is why you have on the whole armor of Christ. They've not taken away prayer unless we've taken it away ourselves. They've not taken away the Bible unless we failed to read it, study it, and write it on the tablet of our heart. Let us make sure that we are always engaging with Scripture so that we can take it with us everywhere we go. Verse 18. Here's your next word you're going to underline as well or highlight. Praying at what? all times. Not when things are good, not just when things are bad, not just kind of whenever you think about it. Praying at all times, but not just praying in the Spirit. We can't fall into the habit of just praying and just lifting up empty words. I appreciated Mark this morning. I noticed, I don't know if he meant for anybody to notice this or not, but he brought up the bulletin. At least that's what it looked like. And he at least had the sick list. That way he could make sure he mentioned every single person. I know Kathy has mentioned this before during some of our Bible studies on Wednesday night. Pray with intention. Pray in the Spirit. We're not just here praying to mention or to lift up empty words that we have no thought about. We're not here to just rattle off some long prayer that maybe sounds good with words. We're here to pray because we know who we're talking to. We're praying because we know we have a God who listens, a God who cares, a God who loves. Praying at all times in the Spirit with what? Circle it, underline it. With all prayer and supplication. We know who our provider is. We know who's supplying for our needs. To that end, keep alert. Keep alert. Don't fall asleep on the watch. Don't forget what you're looking for. Keep alert. With what? Here's your next word. All perseverance. We can't be like a cat that loves a laser pointer. You look over here. You look over here. Keep your eye on the prize. I know we got some cat folks here. Can't be like a dog with a tennis ball or a dog with a stick. I don't know, whatever your dog likes. Keeping alert, keeping your eyes fixed on the prize that is ahead with all perseverance. It doesn't matter what comes, it doesn't matter how tall the waves are, whatever it may be, we must stay alert, know what is ahead. Making supplication for what? Here's your next word. All the saints. All of them. I love when Brian leads singing. You know, it's beautiful. Brian was actually joking about this before, but it was actually a beautiful thing what he said. He said, I just get up there and I kind of start it and everyone else kind of leads the song. That's how it should be. That's true. That's how it should be. It's not Brian singing. It's the family of God singing. It's the family of God coming together. It's the family of God worshiping as God has directed, as God has commanded. All the saints. We all have a chance to be a part of that family. We should be praying for one another, lifting one another up. If someone's down, the whole family of God should and could be there. If someone's up, the whole family of God should be and could be right there with them. Good, bad, moderate times. The family of God should stay together all the time. You drive down Kingston Pike, some of you all may already know what I'm talking about. It starts at about UT's campus, and you start going down towards, I don't even know where that would go, going down towards Bearden, I guess. I bet you there's 30 churches in, I don't even know, a 2-3 mile radius maybe, or 2-3 mile stretch of Kingston Pike. Boy, has Satan and his schemes and his methods divided us. You can about drive just down Highway 66 going back to the interstate, you see a whole slew of them. Go on your phone and Google it and just do for all of Sevier County. I don't even know how many there are. Boy, has the schemes of the devil divided us. It has made religion so confusing to so many people. Yet the truth is right here, which is coming up in just a few verses. Verse 19, I love this. And when you put it with verse 18, he says, praying in all times of the Spirit with all prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert with all perseverance, making supplication for all the saints and also for me. Paul says that. And also for me, that what? That words may be given to me in opening my mouth boldly, to proclaim the mystery of the gospel. Verse 20, for which I am an ambassador in chains, that I may declare it boldly as I ought to speak. I love the fact that Paul realizes this in himself. He's still asking for help from God. Paul very easily could boast about all that he's already done, yet he doesn't. He's still asking for prayer to speak more boldly, to continue to stand fast, to proclaim the mystery of the gospel. So often we can just say, well, the mystery of the gospel has already been unveiled. Has. There is so much confusion in the world. Boy, it'd be a mystery to some people to learn the truth. It'd be like unveiling a mystery to them, because so many people have been led astray. They've been confused by all these different things in the world. And guess what we have? Just like Paul, a chance to boldly speak the truth in all circumstances and proclaim the mystery of the gospel to our community. And boy, do they need it. I don't mention Kingston Pike. I don't mention driving down 66 and seeing all the different churches as a joke. It's sad. It really is sad. There's way too many. Why? Division. That's not how God called his family to be. That's not at all how he's called it to be. We should be unified. We should be proclaiming the mystery of the gospel. And just as Jesus was teaching the truth and people left him, so will people also leave us when we teach the truth. Because sometimes, and if we're not careful, we can fall into the same trap. The truth can be very hard to accept, especially if it's exposing something in our life. It can be love your enemies, praying for your enemies. Boy, isn't that a fun one? Everyone jumps up. That's everyone's favorite one, isn't it? Boy, I love praying for my... Oh, I love all of those things with my enemies. It's one of the hardest ones. Slow to speak. Some of those are tough teachings, aren't they? Let's be an example to our community and proclaim the mystery of the gospel. And in verse 20, which I am an ambassador in chains. All these universities have all these different ambassadors. I feel like it's always the sophomores and the juniors. The seniors are like, I'm too cool for that. And the freshmen have no clue yet what the university is like, but they seem to like it. But you have these ambassadors, and they are just basically the mouthpiece of the university. They're showing you everything. They're telling you everything positive, all the tips and the tricks of campus, the best place to get food. Our life should be an ambassador for Christ. Everything that we do should be bringing praise to Christ, glorification to the kingdom. All of us are an ambassador for Christ. Whether you're speaking or not speaking, whether you're leading or you're following. It doesn't matter if you're the vocal leader or the quiet leader. It doesn't matter if you don't even view yourself as a leader. Every single one of us is an ambassador, and the world is watching. And boy, does the world love watching. Boy, you ever notice how when people are driving, especially down the interstate, boy, they see someone pulled over or an accident, what happens? I mean, it could be, you could be driving going West Knoxville, and the east side is backed up like 3 miles. Everyone's like, man, I wonder, is anyone hurt in that wreck? I wonder who got pulled over. Whatever it may be, everyone is looking. The world loves watching. The world loves getting into drama. Well, if they're going to watch, let's make sure they're watching truth. Let's make sure they're watching a life that is pleasing to God. An ambassador in chains, yet he's still doing it. Paul gives us a beautiful example. It doesn't matter where you're at. Paul was always going to be an ambassador. It didn't matter where he was. That I may declare boldly as I ought to speak. Tonight, how are we speaking? How are we living our life? What armor are we wearing tonight? We have to make sure that we have on a belt of truth, a breastplate of righteousness. We must make sure that we're carrying the right sword. We have a helmet on. We have all these different pieces of the equipment. Because it's an evil time. The darts of the devil are always flying at us. But with the shield of faith, with the promises of God, and the hope of a salvation that will last for forever, we have nothing to fear. We can stand firm, we can stand strong, knowing that Christ is going to provide. We know He's going to keep His promises. We have the mystery of the gospel unveiled right before us, and we can share it with our community. The last three words, ought to speak. That ought to be how we speak. All the time. Speaking in love. Sharing the peace. It's funny, he mentions we're walking in the gospel of peace. It's peace. It can also cause a whole lot of division, can't it? The Bible also talks about that. It can divide up families. Let us stick with truth no matter what the world thinks. People say it's hard today. Oh, there's just not as many Christians. Think back to the ark. There wasn't but 8. There wasn't but 8 truthful following people after God. 8. I can count more than 8 right now. We still have work to do. We still have people to reach, and we still have a gospel to share with everyone. Let us double check the armor that we have on. Let us double check our life. Let us make sure that our speech, our life, the example that we're giving is in accordance with God, because the world is watching. Let's let them see truth, and let's let them see Christ in everything that we do. We might just save a soul or two. If you have anything this evening, maybe you feel like you're not putting on the whole armor. Maybe you feel like your speech is not up to standard that Christ has called it to be. Maybe it's something else. Why wait? Why wait? You can wait and wait and wait. Speaking of the ark, people waited and waited and waited. Boy, it ain't ever rained until it did. Christ ain't ever come back a second time until He does. Let us be ready. Thinking ahead, preparation for the day that we know is coming. It's not a pop quiz, it's a quiz that we know is coming. We have the chance, we have the answers right here before us to be with them. If you've never accepted Christ in your life and contacted the blood, you have that chance this evening as well. And again, why wait? Why carry the baggage of the world any longer when you can be set free in Christ? If you have a need at all this evening, you can come forward as we stand and as we sing with Brian. Thank you.